Hi, today I want to talk about cognitive errors, behavioral biases. Now, there's a ton of these, so this is going to be a multi-part series. This is part one. The big key here is that we all have these, and they all definitely affect our ability to analyze and forecast in negative ways. One of these errors is called the availability heuristic, and that's our tendency to focus on what's in our mind. So things in the recent past, things that are in the news, things that had a big impact on us, and we'll treat those as if they're much more common than they really are. So you think about when there's a big stock market crash, that's in the back of our head, right? We will think about that. We'll think about risks, but we'll think about the ones that we've heard about. So, if shark attacks are on the news or a stock market decline is in the news, we'll think about those and give them more weight than they actually deserve. It's also interesting from an ethical decision-making perspective. If there are people you work with who you believe have a particular moral stand, you will be more likely to side with them on that. So be careful if some of these ethical decisions are not being made in a way that you should be making them. Another one is called the blind spot bias. And what this really is we all know about these biases, or you're hopefully learning about these biases in this series, but we think that other people are more susceptible to them than we are, right? You think, well, yes, these happen, but I'm not going to be the one that falls for these. In fact, they did a study, looked at 600 people, and they asked them, how do you stand relative to others? And 85% of the people in the study said that they were less likely to be subject to these biases than everybody else. So clearly, 50-50 would be kind of the correct answer. And in fact, only one person in this entire study said that they were more susceptible than others to these biases. So you have them, acknowledge it. That's also just the first step of the process. Right? There's also something called the Ikea effect. And that basically is the more involved you get in it, the more you do labor on it, the more you like something. So if you think about the way you do your analysis, or maybe you model something, you'll like the model you created better than the model someone else created, even if the other model is in fact better. Think about your portfolio construction. I have other videos on that, but you might like your particular portfolio construction matter just because you did it, not because it will give you better investment results. So be cognizant of this innate liking of things that you do. There's one called the curse of knowledge. Now, the thing here is, so you're analyzing a stock, you get to know more and more and more about the stock. The more informed you become, the less you are able to have a perspective of the person who is not so informed as you. You also become less likely to be truly neutral about your decision making. So here, we've talked about this a little bit in the past. Be really careful about how you change your perspective as you get more and more knowledge. Are you still neutral? Are you still objective? There's another one called mental accounting. The idea here is that in terms of our money, we segregate things into different accounts. So we might have, for example, kind of our 401k money. We think about those assets in a certain way. We might have a special account for day trading our stocks, where we're behaving in a much riskier way. But we're thinking about these in two separate things. But in terms of our actual wealth, they are combined, and maybe the risk we're taking isn't the way we're thinking about it when we segregate it. So this is this tendency to segregate. We also like to think about gains in a very segregated way. We like to think about in isolations, but it's easier for us to deal with losses if we then re-aggregate these things. So think about that. Also think about just your day-to-day budgeting. You have a budget for the car, you have a budget for the house, you have a budget for utilities. You're thinking about these in separate ways, but it's really all your money and you're paying for them out of a giant pool. We don't think about it that way. We will prefer to pay for something using a credit card than we do with cash, even though it's the same net change in our money. So the idea here is that you need to develop plans to engage your system 2 brain, your analytical brain, in a better way, because your system 1 brain, your unconscious brain, is causing you to have these biases. You need to be really aware of it. Awareness is step 1. Actually having a disciplined plan to deal with them is step 2. We will talk about those somewhere down the road, but again, we have many more of these to go through. I find these really interesting, these behavioral things that probably served us well on the plains of Africa when we were protecting ourselves from lions and other dangerous animals, but don't serve us well as an investment community. Thanks so much for listening.